This video is sponsored by Normandy 1998, Christopher Mitchell, 212th Trooper, Sylar 1610, and Justice Dragor, and brought to you by Justice Dragor, who requested this topic. If there is a video you want me to make, just head over to Patreon or become a channel member and select the Pickled Producer tier, since among other benefits, this will guarantee that your video is made, be it the continuation of an existing series or a brand new story. Also, while I have you, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel, since it costs you nothing and helps tell YouTube you like what I do. But with that out of the way, let's get on with the video. Age 737, a lone Saiyan warrior stands against the tyrant Frieza, and for his effort is exterminated along with his world, while distantly, four figures watch from inside their ship: Salza, Naze, Dore, and their leader, Cooler. Mockingly, the three subordinates disparage Bardock for his failure, during the "there goes the whole monkey farm." That is until they spy a Saiyan attack pod escaping from Planet Vegeta, bound for a distant world called Earth. Using their ship's ability to interface with the pod, as it is all Frieza Force technology, the group are able to view inside, whereupon they lay eyes on a sleeping Saiyan child, with Salza immediately giving the order to plot an intercept course. However, unlike Canon, Cooler does not belay this order, instead allowing his minions to bring the young Saiyan on board, since while he still thinks Frieza should have to clean up his own mess rather than relying on him to pick off any stragglers, he is shrewd enough to see how this could be a golden opportunity to humiliate his brother, since this brat is living proof that Frieza has grown complacent, and is not up to the task of rulership if he cannot even manage a simple planetary genocide. Due to Cooler's revenge containing scenes from Bardock, the father of Goku, I am in turn using that origin for Goku rather than the Super Broly one for this timeline, which means when Cooler and his men bring the baby's pod on board, they find it is registered to Kakarot, having his name and official Frieza Force mission programmed in, rather than being a stolen pod. Through this, they also learn that he is the son of that rebel Bardock, something Cooler finds amusing, as surely that will only aggravate Frieza more when the time comes to reveal the child's survival to him. Unfortunately, a quick scan from Dore's scouter does reveal that Kakarot has none of his father's strength, possessing only a measly power level of 2, so any hope of using him as a soldier are out the window, considering the weakest of Cooler's henchmen, Naze, has a power level of 163,000. Nonetheless, the Purple Dictator doesn't need him to be strong, he just needs him alive, so he can wave him in Frieza's face next time the two of them and their father are together, since then maybe King Cold will also see the error of spoiling his beloved favorite so much. However, when this will be, Cooler does not know, as the three of them are seldom together, and as the black space sheep of the family, if he summoned them, he doubt either of his kin would come. And so, doing what he does best, Cooler employs discipline and patience, continuing his work of conquering and destroying worlds for his own little fiefdom that father so generously gifted him when he was overlooked for leadership of the Cold Force. Meanwhile, as soon as Kakarot can stand and comprehend instructions, he is put to work doing menial tasks around the ship, since the Cooler Force is not a place known for its charity, so he must earn his keep until he can be used as a tool against Frieza. Due to being an energetic little monkey with the Saiyan physiology to withstand long stretches of intense activity, he is able to work for longer than a child of his age from pretty much any other species could, with this extra labor pleasing his lord, as he respects those who do their duties proficiently and without complaint. Unfortunately, due to also having a cheeky streak, and not fully understanding the danger he's in by serving under monsters like Cooler and his armored squadron, the first time Kakarot is assigned to assist the cooks by scrubbing pots and dishes in the galley, he instead helps himself to a little snack when no one's looking, and then another, and another, quickly consuming a month's worth of provisions including several delicacies that were being saved for Lord Cooler himself. Naturally, such misbehavior cannot go unpunished, and so when Salza learns of what the boy has done, he beats him within an inch of his life. Due to being almost 100,000 times stronger than Kakarot, even when he holds back as much as he can, Salza still brings the boy to the brink of death, forcing the blue-skinned Brench to throw him into a healing pod as quickly as possible, since Lord Cooler will surely have his head if he kills the little monkey before he can be used to shame Frieza. Thanks to this, Kakarot does not succumb to his wounds as he certainly would have otherwise, though what he does do is grow exponentially stronger, a fact that is not lost on Cooler's minions, who are quick to report this to their master. Intrigued by this, Cooler gives Salza permission to discipline the Saiyan just as harshly next time he steps out of line, which, due to being a child, is not long. Like last time, he is brought to the brink of death, and also last time when he emerges from the healing tank, his power level has skyrocketed once again, now being a little over 400. While unimpressive for a Cooler Force soldier, this is still sizable growth when not so long ago Kakarot's power was a measly 2. Recognizing this along with what it means for the boy's potential power down the line, Cooler begins to reassess his views on the monkey child, as while he does still intend to use him as a tool in his sibling rivalry, now there is a possibility of him having even greater utility once he has grown a bit stronger through more of these life-threatening injuries, which appear to be triggering the fabled Saiyan Zenkai power. Fortunately, while Cooler can be a cruel man, he is not a sadistic one who revels in causing pain, nor is he a petulant brat who cannot stand delayed gratification, meaning he does not simply command Salza to torture Kakarot until he's sufficiently strong, which would be the expedient path, instead choosing to put the boy to work in situations where he may acquire those injuries naturally, while also benefiting the cooler force. This unsurprisingly means planetary conquests and invasions, with the Purple Tyrant quickly coming to realize why Frieza put up with those Saiyans for so long, since there is something rather awe-inspiring in watching a lone Ozaru lay waste to an entire populace, even if his own elite soldiers could have done so much faster. Nonetheless, this great ape form does come with one notable drawback: its sloppiness, as due to being a feral beast, it destroys everything in its path, living or otherwise, meaning it's really only good for flattening worlds, which diminishes their market value when compared to furnished ones with all their infrastructure intact. Fortunately, rumor has it that with hard work and training, a Saiyan can learn to keep their mind when in this form, and while Cooler does not have any Saiyans on hand to train Kakarot, he, like the other members of his family, is very familiar with having too much power that must be restrained through careful discipline, so perhaps it is time he take a more direct hand in this child's molding as a weapon of the cooler force. And thus, after several years aboard his ship, Kakarot receives his first audience with Lord Cooler. Due to the beatings from Salza, along with the amount of killing he has been made to do at a young age, a lot of his previous carefree demeanor is gone, with the young Saiyan kneeling before his master as expected, even if there is a touch of eager impertinence as he questions what Lord Cooler has called him here for. From his bubble car, which also acts as a throne, the elder son of King Cold stoically surveys the boy, before stating that he intends to teach Kakarot discipline, so that he may control his Ozaru form and serve him better. Having seen the privileges Salza, Naze, and Dore enjoy as repayment for their loyalty and loyal service to Lord Cooler, the black-haired humanoid nods that he is ready to learn, and to serve, a fire in his eyes that denotes his passionate Saiyan nature crying out for the challenge of controlling his great ape transformation. Recognizing this fervent hunger to grow, Cooler smiles ever so slightly, as if there is one thing he cannot abide in a subject, it is sloth. In the past, others, namely his father and brother, have wrongly mistaken his patience for this, though in time he will prove them wrong, and if all goes according to plan, this Saiyan will be the first step towards that goal. Red Eyes still boring into Kakarot, Cooler instructs him to rise, as he has one last question, and wishes to see his face when he answers it. Doing as he has been bid, Kakarot rises to his rather insignificant full height, and looks his master squarely in the eye, demonstrating a surprising amount of confidence for something the tyrant could turn to dust with a wave of a finger. Nonetheless, rather than taking this as an insult as other more prickly egotistical rulers might, Cooler instead meets the gaze calmly and asks his question: is Kakarot prepared to endure pain, hardship, and potentially even death in the pursuit of this training? At once, this is met with a nod, to the point where if Cooler did not know for a fact that the boy had already experienced pain, hardship, and more than one brush with death, he would assume it was the eagerness of a callow fool unaware of what he's agreeing to. However, as he looks into the Saiyan's eyes, he sees one who is perfectly aware of what he is agreeing to, and is willing to make the sacrifices even still if it means a chance to fulfill his ambition. Knowing precisely what that sort of single-minded determination feels like, Cooler does not need to ask anything more, instead noting they will begin immediately, and that he hopes Kakarot's abilities match his ambitions, as the boy will soon learn that he does not tolerate anything short of excellence. Good to his word, Cooler is a stern taskmaster, pushing Kakarot to maintain his focus at all times, as it is integral to regulating his power and controlling it rather than the other way round. However, this is not all he does, as whenever the Cooler Force visits a world that both has a full moon and qualifies as acceptable collateral damage should the training go awry, the iceling and his young charge descend down to the surface for some more practical training in controlling the Ozaru state. Despite the prep work the pair have put in, these early attempts do quickly go awry, with Kakarot losing himself to the beast and going berserk. Though being an attentive master, Cooler is on hand to prevent him from stepping too far out of line, as he knows how to bring the raging ape to heel, with it being the same as any other wild animal: pain. As a result, whenever Kakarot fails to heed his commands in ape form, the Purple Tyrant rises into the air, making sure to first enter the Ozaru's field of view, so that his tiny monkey brain can comprehend where his imminent punishment is coming from. Then, once he is sure Kakarot has made the connection, he strikes him, sometimes with his tail, as just the air whipped up by him swishing it is enough to leave deep cuts in the simian's hide, and other times by firing a pair of eye beams into him, albeit with precise care to ensure that he does not damage any vital organs as he burns the pinprick holes through his subordinate. Either way, way, all it takes is one hit from the ruler to down the great ape, often leaving him unconscious until sunrise or sometimes in such critical condition that he is forcibly reverted to normal, with these instances also coming with a hefty Zenkai. However, in spite of these failures, Cooler does not give up, nor does he punish Kakarot once he is released from the healing chamber, instead summoning him so they can debrief on what happened, as it is imperative that the boy understand that these injuries are not the result of sadism or anger towards him, but simply teaching tools to prevent calamity, while also motivating him to succeed. Understanding his master's reasoning, Kakarot does not hold any resentment towards Lord Cooler for his training methods, since like they discussed in their first meeting, it is necessary to teach him discipline and ensure he gains control of the Ozaru form. Not to mention with each new Zenkai, he feels a little stronger mentally when transformed, as if he can resist a bit more of the fever that fills his mind and tells him to destroy without discretion. Thanks to this, he is slowly able to begin keeping some of his mind while transformed, even if it is only enough to understand and obey simple commands such as heal. Fortunately, this is sufficient for Lord Cooler to stop subduing him with force, and after a few instances to confirm that it was not a fluke, the iceling acknowledges Kakarot's efforts, claiming that he is learning control and discipline, two traits he will need to master if he is to be of use. With this acknowledgement also comes a rise in status, as he is at last permitted to wear the one-shoulder variant armor that marks him as a soldier of the Cooler Force, along with finally being deemed competent enough to receive solo missions which he is permitted to undertake in either his base or Ozaru form, as by now both are capable of handling whatever pitiful resistance he is likely to come across from the worlds he is sent to conquer. In the cases where Kakarot does utilize his Ozaru form, these missions serve as further training and control, as he makes concerted effort to exercise discipline in what he destroys, with Lord Cooler assessing his progress by what is left following the slaughter, even if he does have to make some begrudging accommodations for the fact that some urban areas will be damaged simply because they are not built to handle something as large as a giant monkey. However, this does not mean the pair give up on their own Ozaru training, with Cooler being pleased to see that Kakarot is maintaining more of his mental state with each passing transformation, so that soon he is for the most part himself, with perhaps a slightly more brutal iteration. Good. Now that he has mastery over himself, he can begin exerting mastery over others. To this end, the Tyrant next begins instructing Kakarot on command and leadership, both theoretically and practically by having him accompany him and the armored squadron onto the battlefield. Unlike the more cerebral training to control Great Ape, this comes naturally to the young Saiyan, as having served closely under his lord for some time now, he has witnessed and on some level internalized Cooler's philosophy on leadership, which like all things to do with him, is about patience and deliberate action. At times, this means sitting back and allowing the rank and file to do their work, such as when Kakarot himself is dispatched to conquer worlds. Though by the same token, a commander should always be prepared to lead from the front and use their greater power to assist and inspire their subordinates, while bringing ruin to both the enemy's morale and their defenses. However, this is not the only lesson Cooler has for the boy who is rapidly becoming his protege, as he is quick to remind him that while an animal can be tamed by pain, and fear can be used to gain a person's temporary loyalty for as long as the threat persists, if one wishes to get the best out of those below them, they need respect, which is a two-way street. As Kakarot has proven himself an experiential learner, Cooler soon assigns him to lead a small squad of grunts made up of warriors from worlds that were recently annexed into the Cooler Force rather than be destroyed. As a result, some of these subordinates were conquered by Kakarot himself, with this naturally creating tension, just as Cooler had desired, since if the Saiyan can gain the loyalty of an enemy, then there is no one he will be unable to command. Being savvy enough to guess that this is his lord's game, Kakarot does his best to make use of his lessons, though with his own spin, as he vastly prefers to lead from the front, even if he will at times hang back to allow the others a chance to handle the enemy before he steps in. Additionally, he is quick to shrug off much of the vitriol hurled his way, perhaps more than Cooler or Salza would without punishing the dissenter, though when coupled with his ferocity on the battlefield, none of his underlings mistake this for weakness. In fact, despite his relative youth, Kakarot's squad quickly come to respect their new captain, finding him to have a rather magnetic personality that makes them want to push themselves just as he does, while in turn, they are treated with respect and humility, as at no point does the young Saiyan ever view himself as better than them. Stronger than them, yes, but never better, as even after several years under Lord Cooler's personal tutelage, he has not forgotten his beginnings as a servant scrubbing the ship's floors. As a result, their mission success rate and survival rate both increase exponentially, as does their strength and everyone's ability to work as part of a team, with the more growing from each difficult mission Lord Cooler sends their away. Not only that, but Kakarot also quickly finds himself experiencing his Saiyan growth spurt somewhat prematurely thanks to the brutality of his lifestyle. Case in point, future Trunks getting his growth spurt at 13 compared to present Trunks not growing until he's 16, so that soon he looks every bit the captain his troops believe in, while also gaining an even more striking resemblance to his father. Naturally, Cooler monitors all of these developments through Kakarot and his squad's scouters, with the result pleasing him to no end, so much so that after a particularly grueling mission, the tyrant summons the young Saiyan to debrief with him as they have many times before. However, unlike previous instances, this will not be done from his bubble car while Kakarot kneels before him, but instead from opposite ends of a long dining table, as this debrief also comes with an invitation to dinner. As they eat, Cooler questions Kakarot on if he knows why he invested so much time and effort into him over the years. Though rubbing the back of his head, the Saiyan replies that he never really thought about it, but if he had to guess, perhaps his lord saw something of himself in him. Chuckling softly into his rosé, Cooler replies that he is not so sentimental, nor does he believe it is wise for Kakarot to start comparing himself to him. No, the reason he took the Saiyan under his wing is that he is the antithesis of someone he hates, his brother Frieza. Frieza is conceited and arrogant. He revels in cruelty like a child playing a game, to the point where he forgets the job to be done in favor of his sport, and for all his gifts, he squanders them, having never earned a thing in his life. That is why he can so casually toss away loyal species like Kakarot's Saiyan race, because they came to him at no cost, and so hold no value. In short, he is everything a leader should not be, yet he is continually shielded from his shortcomings and favored undeservedly. Truthfully, the end of this tirade had been lost on Kakarot, as at the revelation that Frieza was the one to destroy his race, his blood had begun to boil and pound in his ears. While he had never known the Saiyans and so never formed any attachment to them, not to mention the fact that as far as he is concerned, planetary genocide is just the way of the galaxy, this still angers him, as it goes against everything Lord Cooler had taught him about honor and repayment for loyalty, not to mention his innate Saiyan pride, which screams that this cannot stand. Fortunately, it seems Kakarot's master thinks so too, as when his cool red eyes lock with the Saiyan's onyx ones, he asks if the youth wishes to accompany him to meet Frieza face to face as part of a special mission. Cold Planet 1 is cold, as the name would suggest, with all life seemingly being buried under endless tundra and mountains of ice. However, looks can be deceiving, as some life had managed to adapt, mutate, and even thrive in this harsh climate, becoming just as harsh and cold as its surroundings, with the one who most exemplified this having become the monarch of this world, and begun the dynasty that would culminate in King Cold and his 2 sons. It is here that we find the 3 of them, with Cold perched upon a mighty throne capable of holding his immense frame, while Frieza and Cooler stand before him, their heads bowed respectfully, and Zarbon, Dodoria, and the armored squadron stand on opposite sides of the throne room, eyeing each other with mutual dislike. In his usual jovial affectation, Cold comments on how much he appreciates his sons answering his summons, and how long it's been since they've seen each other, with the 2 younger Icelings both giving their trained courtly responses while politely inquiring as to what their father has called them here for. As it turns out, the king's concerns around the troubling rise of insurgency within the Empire, as in recent years a few notable pirate crews have cropped up and begun pillaging Frieza Force resources, while even worse, a would-be Namekian conqueror has had the audacity to actually try and claim worlds already under their banner for himself. If this is allowed to carry on with impunity, the Cold Dynasty will quickly become a laughingstock throughout the galaxy, so he is tasking his sons with stamping out these upstarts. In his smug, unctuous voice, Frieza is the first to respond, simpering that naturally he will carry this out with the utmost efficiency, though allowing a smirk to crest his face as his idiot brother could not have given him a better phrasing if he'd written it himself. Cooler archly questions if in his attempts to be efficient, Frieza has forgotten to be effective. After all, these rebels have risen up under his watch, and it seems he has lost his touch with even the most basic aspect of his job, considering he couldn't even wipe out those pitiful Saiyan monkeys properly. Lip curling in an ugly scowl, Frieza retorts that if his brother is talking about that trio of Saiyans he has under his command, he allowed them to live, since watching them squirm under his heel amuses him, though raising a finger and wagging it in a condescending countermand. Cooler replies that he is not talking about them at all. He is talking about another Saiyan, one Frieza let slip away while he was busy patting himself on the back as he watched their planet burn. At these words, the armored squadron part to reveal Kakarot, whose unmistakable Saiyan appearance is enough to render Frieza and his henchmen mute. In contrast, King Cold chortles that Cooler must have been hiding this monkey for years just to make this point. How droll. However, it seems this is not all Cooler has to show, as in Kakarot's arms is a portable holographic projector that displays the events of his escape and Frieza's failure for all to see. Now practically guffawing with mirth at his elder son's shrewd political maneuvering, King Cold agrees that Frieza has been neglecting his work, so perhaps it would be for the best if a third of his territory was temporarily reassigned to Cooler, since that will take some of the strain off him. From the enraged contortion of Frieza's face, he certainly does not think it is for the best, though knowing he cannot openly speak out against his father's ruling unless he wants to be taught a lesson in pain by the only being who's ever managed to injure him, the youngest member of the family bites his tongue. However, this becomes significantly harder to do when Cooler decides to twist the knife in just that little bit more, as he taunts that Frieza has given him such a lovely gift, so he would feel dreadful if he didn't return the favor. Fortunately, he knows how to remedy that. He then turns to Kakarot, and upon receiving the young man's salute, informs him that effective immediately he is under Lord Frieza's command, and is to serve him as dutifully as he did him. Face still twisting with fury, the pink and purple iceling demands to know what Cooler's doing, to which he calmly replies that as Frieza himself said, having the Saiyans serve under him amuses him, so now he can have one more. After all, it would be selfish of him to keep his little brother from having the complete set of monkeys. Once more, the trappings of courtly conduct prevent Frieza from simply blasting Kakarot on the spot, though figuring he might as well attempt to regain some of his father's favor by playing along, Frieza allows his face to relax into its usual haughty genteel expression, as he claims that Cooler is too kind, before wondering aloud how strong the Saiyan is, since compared to his monkeys, he looks rather scrawny. Though, knowing better than most that size is no indicator of true power, the tyrant taps his scouter with a readout informing him that the monkey has a power level of 4,000, which would place him on par with Vegeta's hulking attendant. Not bad, he supposes, good enough to conquer a few worlds until such a time as it won't appear petty to kill him. Not deigning to speak directly to the filthy monkey, the Emperor of the Universe instead commands Zarbon and Dodoria to move out, with Kakarot understanding that he is to do the same. Saluting Lord Cooler one last time, the young Saiyan then departs with his new master, keeping several steps behind him, just in case the tyrant intends to strike him with his tail. However, to his surprise, Frieza does nothing of the sort, instead climbing back into his own bubble car and drifting away with Zarbon at his heels, while Dodoria is left to oversee the Saiyan's integration into the Force. Not liking these monkeys any more than his lord does, the pink brute gruffly grunts that currently the other Saiyans are off conquering some mudball that will soon be renamed Frieza Planet 128, so if he wants to make himself useful, take a pod and go help the others of his kind. Exuding the sort of stoic discipline he knows Lord Cooler would want him to have, Kakarot does not bite at this rude treatment. Instead, he simply nods, then heads for the hangar where he can get himself situated in a pod. Truthfully, this is the ideal assignment for him, as he had been wanting to meet the other Saiyans since learning there were some under Frieza's command, with it almost being difficult to fall into hibernation as his pod deploys and begins automatically charting a course to rendezvous with the others. In what seems like no time at all, Kakarot is awoken by the familiar jerk of impact, followed by the hiss of the pod's latch opening, signifying that he has made planetfall, and taking flight to survey his surroundings, he sees a burnt barren wasteland, proof that these other Saiyans don't mess around. Tapping his scouter to scan for power levels, the spiky-haired Saiyan finds a trio huddled a couple of 100 miles to the west, and so taking off, he soon finds himself drawing near. Having assumed everyone but them would be dead, Vegeta, Nappa and Raditz had not bothered with a lookout, something Kakarot cannot help but note as sloppy, and which he would never allow from one of his subordinates, though it does give him the element of surprise, which he intends to use fully. Touching down behind where the other Saiyans are resting, Kakarot flits forward, so that before anyone can realize it, he is in the center of their camp, his voice measured but stern, somewhat imitating Lord Cooler, as he states that were he an enemy, they would all be dead. Spinning as one, the three Saiyans of the Frieza Force demand to know who he is, and seeing no need for games, he introduces himself as Kakarot, a Saiyan just like them, with his name and appearance combined being enough to stun Raditz, who gasps that he can't believe it after all these years. Glare now falling on Raditz, Vegeta barks at him to explain how he knows this worm, and still in that stunned voice, the long-haired Saiyan mutters that he's his little brother. Sneer cresting his lips at this, Nappa Britishly chuckles that he's right about the little part, since this chump's half a head shorter than Vegeta, earning him a growl from the prince that silences him at once. However, it seems Vegeta himself has more to say, smirking that Kakarot better not be as weak as his brother, since a few years back Frieza assigned some pathetic alien trash to fill out their ranks, and all they accomplished was to drag the rest of them down until they finally had the decency to die, so he's done allowing weaklings to serve under him. Undaunted by the prince's bravado, Kakarot factually assures Vegeta that he's no weakling, though this just earns him a grunt of "we'll see about that," as the would-be monarch tilts his head in an unspoken order for Raditz to attack. Knowing his place, the older son of Bardock takes flight, crying that he hopes whatever backwater world Kakarot's been living on hasn't made him too soft, though as he hurls his Saturday crush, it passes right through the younger brother, only for Kakarot to appear behind him and knock him out with a wordless chop to the back of the neck. At this sight, Nappa is forced to begrudgingly admit that maybe the little twerp won't be complete deadweight, though standing firm in his disdain, Vegeta barks that Kakarot shouldn't get cocky just because he beat Raditz, since he's little more than a Cyberman with hair. However, still in that stoic voice, Kakarot retorts that it's rather rich to hear this from the prince when he's stood safely to the side and let someone else do the fighting for him. Vein bulging in his temple, Vegeta roars that he'll show this mouthy piece of low-class trash why he shouldn't speak back to a super elite like him, though this just causes a smile to curl the corners of Kakarot's mouth and a glimmer to come into his eyes. As he grins, he was hoping Vegeta would want to fight, since this way when he wins, he can assume command of the squad and put it to use for his true mission. Then, as he adopts a fighting stance, his body begins to transform. And that's where we'll leave things for now. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please don't forget to like, subscribe, or leave your thoughts, suggestions, or screams of rage in the comments below.